New Landing's Job Chat is brought to you in part by the Prosperity Advisory Group, the next step in your financial future, and by the EBS Group with an unparalleled background in Oracle solutions and services.
We all have networks of people. Some have been with us for a long time. But how about looking at these people and these networks from a different perspective? What is that perspective? You'll learn today on Job Chat. Our guest is Denise Mills. Welcome.
Thank you.
Denise Mills is a worldwide speaker, facilitator, coach, and trainer. She is the founder and chief mindset officer of LeaderFuelNow, and founder of 6 Degrees Solutions. In the past, she has founded 26 businesses of over $60 million, and as well as coaching over 800 startup businesses. She has been honored as one of the 50 most influential women in Kansas City, as well as being recognized by the Kansas City Business Journal as one of the women who mean business. Welcome, Denise.
Thanks, Hector.
Let's start off with something really basic. What is networking?
Well, it's, networking is interesting, especially from a career transition standpoint, because people often don't think about networking until they suddenly need to, and then they panic about it. So I like to define networking as just simply friends helping friends. And I know you would help a friend in a heartbeat, right?
Of course.
Yeah, most people would. And so if we think about networking in that way, that's all it is. It's just reaching out to a friend and asking them to connect us to someone, and then that person connecting us to someone that's relevant for whatever we need at the time, which could be, sometimes we network to find personal services, doctors, plumbers, some sort of service person. And in this case, it would be for seeking a new position of some type.
Are there any rules to networking, any do's and don'ts?
There's a whole long list of do's and don'ts, which I think is overwhelming. I think the important thing is that there's no real rights or wrongs. Let's say that in the standpoint of everybody networks in their own style and should. So introverts can network just as easily as extroverts, and a lot of times introverts don't think that they can. They certainly can. They just do it differently because they have friends too. So introverts can ask their friends for help, just like extroverts can ask their friends for help.
You have numbers of people in your network, hopefully. But do all of them play the same role, or are there different roles that you would look for each one to play?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody in your network has different roles. You have friends and family, close friends and family. And then you have associates and acquaintances. There's just so many different types. There's the person that you meet that you sit next to on an airplane. That's an acquaintance. You may or may not even exchange first and last names. You might exchange first names. You may not ever see that person again. Is that person a part of your network? Some people would say yes, that if you cross paths with them again, that you could network with them. I think it's more about relationships. I think it's about truly giving before you receive, and I think it's about giving, not ever really expecting to receive, that everything kind of plays itself around in the universe, and the right things happen for the right reasons. So when you help someone out, they may tell someone that person that they told might be the person who helps you out. You just never know.
So I hear you saying the give and receive. So it's not just a one-way relationship. There is some responsibility on your part in networking.
Absolutely. So I'll answer that kind of in 2 ways. The first way is a lot of times people get uncomfortable with networking because they expect to have a give and receive. For example, if you give me something, I'm uncomfortable even asking you for help because when you give me the help, I don't know how to repay you. So therefore, a lot of people won't ask because they can't even think how to reciprocate. And that's wonderful, except it's not required at all. As a friend, I want to help you. So I don't even think about how you can help me back. I'm happy that you asked, and I'm happy to help. So that's one aspect of that. Is it's not really about requiring or expecting to reciprocate, but that will keep a lot of people away from networking because they just don't know what they have to give. Mm-hmm. It's not always equal, and it's not really expected to be.
How's the term Birddog fall into all of this?
Well, so when I think about networking and friends helping friends, I think about all the different ways that your friends can help you. And probably the most common in a career transition situation is you as my friend, I would expect for you to bird dog for me. And what I mean by that is go out there and just kind of keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities for me because I need a job and I expect my network to help me find the job. The challenge with that, and it goes back to your earlier question about do I have some responsibility, how do you know what I'm looking for? It's really interesting when I talk to groups and I'll ask them in general, like ask your family and friends, do they know what you do? And your family can't even articulate clearly what you do. They might be able to state who you work for or who you have worked for. They might be able to state your profession. They might be able to say you're an accountant or a banker or a project manager, but they really don't understand what that means. And so by that virtue, how can they really bird dog for you if they don't understand what you do and what your talents are or what would be interesting to you? So that's where you have your responsibility. You're responsible to educate them, to help them seek out for you what you're looking for by virtue of making it easy for them. And that gets into, I would have the responsibility of, here's what I'm looking for, make it easy for you to understand, to give you some ideas of things that I've done in the past. So tell you some stories that are interesting stories, not too technical, but interesting stories that you could repeat, that you could intrigue other people with. Hey, it's worth a conversation with her because she's done this or she knows how to do that. So that's my responsibility to educate you. But if I don't take the time to do that, then I can't expect you to bird dog for me. And even if you did bird dog for me, you probably wouldn't really find the right kind of position because you just don't know.
And I would imagine, since you have the broad spectrum of people, that you don't have to provide the same information to everyone. Someone that's already in the industry, you can speak to in a different manner, mm-hmm. and use whatever language that industry uses so that they could understand better what it is you were doing.
And that's really the beauty of a broad network, is everybody in your network can provide a little different perspective, which is healthy in a lot of different ways. So let's say that let's just go into what I think is the ideal scenario. So there's two real ideal scenarios when it comes to friends and networking. The first and simplest ideal scenario is that I've applied for a position. I can call you and say, Hector, you know the hiring manager, and somewhere on their desk is a pile of 200 resumes, and mine's in the middle of that pile somewhere. I want you to call them as my friend. I want you to be able to vouch for me as my friend and tell them to pull that resume out of the middle of the pile, love me because you said so, and hire me. And that's really the ideal scenario, and that does happen all the time. And think about it from the perspective of the hiring manager. They have 200 resumes they have to go through. They're overwhelmed by the number of resumes that are sitting there. Yes. They really don't have the time. I mean, it's their job, right? But they don't really, it's not fun to go through that whole pile of resumes. And in fact, if anything, they're not looking for who they can hire. They're looking who they can put on the quick no pile, and then get down to the short yes pile. But if you called and said, hey, I've got the ideal candidate for you, they're in that stack, pull them out of the middle, you're going to love her, she's perfect for the position that you have, and that you had credibility in that hiring manager's eyes, they would be so grateful to you. They would be so grateful to have a great candidate. They would, at that point, literally glance at the resume and in their mind, they've already convinced themselves this is the right person, and now it's just a matter of me making a good impression when I go face to face. That's really the ideal scenario. Mm-hmm. It can happen. It can happen frequently, but that's the value of a broad network, is asking a lot of my friends, hey, I know my resume is sitting on the corner of that desk. who knows this person, and asking a lot of different people so that the right person can make the phone call.
So you may have people in your network that you don't even know because they're friends of friends.
Absolutely.
So what your expectations are then from different people in your network varies depending on your relationship with them.
That and making it easy for your friends to introduce you, and making it easy for your friends' friends to accept the introduction. And that's a big part of it is I have a responsibility when you introduce me to make you look good. So it's kind of a humbling experience because I have to think about, do I present myself well? Do I present myself favorably? Do I present myself in a way that I am interested in the person that you introduced me, so that they circle back to you and say, Hector, that was a great introduction, thank you, versus me, because you would expect that I would circle around you because I need the introduction. But your friend doesn't need the introduction. They're doing you a favor. So it's my responsibility to make you look good.
Where do stories come into this?
Stories are so important because stories are a great reflection on what we do and who we really are. And it makes it easy to repeat what we do in a way, because I can't remember. Like if you were to say, well, here's my profession and here's all the things that I do or know, probably because I'm not in your profession, I don't really understand what that laundry list of things are. You've got acronyms, you've got jargon, you've got lingo. And so unfortunately, it just makes me feel awkward that I can't really state everything that you do. But when you tell me a story about something that you did that's interesting and intriguing and fun for me to share with others, and even it's kind of a pride thing. Let me tell you about my friend Hector. This is what he does. You should meet him, you should know him, or you should refer him. That is much easier than me getting it wrong. And a lot of times, you asked me earlier about some of the do's and don'ts. I have a list of why people don't refer. And one of the reasons people don't refer their friends who they love and respect and admire is they don't really know what to say about them, and then they don't want to get it wrong. So if I'm hesitant because of all the jargon to get it wrong, most likely I'm going to get it wrong. So if you make it easy by giving me stories stick, they're interesting, they create a buzz, they last, they're memorable, they're fun. That makes it a lot easier for me to introduce you.
I think it also helps in that by human nature, most people are a little shy about bragging about themselves.
Absolutely.
Where in a story, you're weaving that bragging into something that doesn't sound like bragging.
That's true. And another phrase I like to share with people is, so if you say to me, especially people, because so many people are uncomfortable with talking themselves up or bragging, and yet at the same time it's almost necessary when they're in career transition of some type. But one of the things I tell them to say is, so if you were to say, Denise, tell me some great things about you, that would be awkward. But what I tell people to say is start the sentence with, people say that I'm. So it's not me saying that I am. So I would say people say that I'm, that I'm smart, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, whatever they would say about you. But if you say it in that way, it's easier for it to come out of your mouth, because that is an opportunity for you to brag about yourself, but yet it's awkward. It's always awkward.
When you're talking to people, telling them stories, doesn't have to be stories about your professional life, does it?
No. Stories can also be a great factor or impression on your personal life, who you are, your character. Not so much personal stories, but your character. So you can tell stories about community service. You can tell stories about problem solving. You can tell stories about your coaching ability, if you're coaching a team or you're coaching your teenager. Those stories, but I also would say be very selective about the stories that you tell, and to the extent that you can, rehearse your stories. So that's the other side of your network. Your network is there for you to bounce ideas off of. As my friend, you would help me think it through. I could share a story and say, how does this story sound? and you say, Denise, that doesn't, it's not very reflective, or it's not really the impression that you want to leave, or the impression actually is not a good impression, I would want to know that, and I'd want to know that before I started telling that story out in the community.
So what I hear you saying is that networks are also good for feedback, some of which might not be what you want to hear.
Exactly. And I think your network is great for feedback, and most people are uncomfortable with truthful feedback. I mean, all of us can use improvement in some way. So we need to prepare ourselves for the conversation about feedback. So I would prepare myself to say, I'm gonna meet with you, Hector. I'd love to see you this afternoon, and I would love for you to just give me some honest feedback. So I, as your friend, need to give you permission to give me brutally honest feedback, because you're going to be nice. You're going to kind of hold back a little bit, but that doesn't really help me. And that's the candidness those conversations need to have is, Hector, the only way that I really could use your help is, and the only way that it's going to help me is if you're truthful. So I'm going to prepare myself, I'm going to kind of put my armor on, and I'm going to listen respectfully to what you have to say and process it, because somewhere in there is some truth. So if you would say something like, Denise, in conversations when we're with a group of people, you talk too much. I would go, that's possible. And I'd process that and be more aware of allowing other people in the conversation to speak. That's really good feedback, because I don't want to come across as an over-talker or an interrupter, or I have one story better than the next person. So that feedback is invaluable. But often we're not really truly aware of how we come across in a group setting, or how we might come across in an interview.
So it's not only listening to the feedback, but using it in some manner, not just denying, no, that's not what I do.
Right.
If that's what you're hearing, then that's the perspective that you're giving out.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to identify, how can I change that to make it seem better for everybody else?
Yeah, you have to really approach the feedback that every piece of feedback has some truth in it. You don't have to necessarily accept all the feedback, and you don't have to accept all the advice, but consider that there might be some truth to it, because again, it's an opportunity to grow.
So when we're approaching our network people, we need to, I'm sure, have in our mind set what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. How detailed should we be about what we're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. The amount of detail makes it easier for our network to solve the problem or make the introductions that we need. So we talked about a couple of different scenarios. One scenario would be the just pull the resume out of the stack scenario. And then we talked about another scenario, which would be having that person sort of Birddog for you. But really the ideal scenario would be that I would come to you as my friend, and as my friend, and we talked about the different types of people within our network. As my friend, I would choose you because you have some influence in the business community. You know what's going on in my industry. So again, that's kind of the selective nature of who I'm sharing this information with. But I would sit down and I would do my homework, because that's the right thing to do. And my homework is who has the types of positions that fit me well. What types of companies are the types of companies that I would want to work in? Is it a large company or a small company? Is it more entrepreneurial mindset, or is it more corporate? Because culture makes a big difference. Do I want to work in a small team? Do I want to work in a large team? Do I want to work on my own, or do I need to work within a team environment? So all of those are a part of me educating you about what I'm looking for, but me doing my own research to be able to say, okay, now I've narrowed it down to these top 3 companies. And here's how, I've done this many times, so I know this is true, even though it seems almost unbelievable. But if you sat down with me and you said, here are the 3 companies that I want to work for, and here's why, and here's the real key. You should make it easy for me to introduce you into those companies by telling me how you can increase their profitability or increase their revenue, because that's what companies are listening for right now. So they don't need another expense of a person. What they're looking for is, how can you contribute? How can you help my company grow? And they will create a position for you if you can go in and you can present a case on, here's why you should hire me. I know how to develop a new market. I know how to create marketing ideas that expand you into your current market. I know how to get people to buy more from you because I know how. So it's whatever it is, even if you're a project manager. I can finish projects that are sitting in a pile that need to be done, that are distracting the business developers from going out and selling more. Whatever it is, you need to think it through so that when I present you to the company, they're like, oh my gosh, we could absolutely use someone like that. And then they create a position. That's the ideal. I mean, that is the ultimate way of networking, and it can happen. But if you think through that entire scenario, the ownership is on the person who's looking for the job to make it easy for their friend to make the introduction to the company in the first place.
And you're making it about the company, not about yourself.
Absolutely.
You're there as the solution to their problem.
That's exactly right. And companies are looking for someone who will take initiative. They are looking, I mean, the economy is still suspect enough that companies aren't going out and hiring a lot of people that they don't believe can create or increase revenue or profitability in some way. So increasing profitability can be on the side of saving costs as well. It doesn't have to be, it sounds like I'm talking about business development, but it doesn't have to be a business development role. It can be, I know how to make some aspect of your company more efficient and save you thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. That all makes a difference to a company.
So you can be looking at how do you streamline, make hours, take hours out of the business as opposed to money, but it all equates back to money in the end.
Yeah, it all feeds the bottom line. So if you can speak in that way, not only to your friends, but that makes it your friends, it makes it easier for your friends to introduce you, but it also, that's the type of interview you want to have. The interview is not, I need a job and what can you do for me and when do I get vacation time and time off. The interview is about, how can I contribute to your organization to accomplish your organization's goals? And that really is a unique kind of interview. And that interview stands out when it comes to that hiring manager remembering you and choosing you. They will choose you over someone with similar skills who sounds like they need a job. And you sound like you're here to help my organization and to help me solve a problem or reach my goals.
And so, in speaking to your friends about the position, the market, the industry, what you're doing is giving them confidence that they are going to be making a good recommendation.
Absolutely. And the reverse is also true, that those recruiters are checking, they're using resources like LinkedIn, and they're looking to see, who do I know that knows this person because they interviewed really well, and they're double checking their own gut. They have a gut feeling that this is the great candidate. So they're going to circle into the network that I have and go, hey, Hector, you know this person. Is that for real? Or was she just a great interviewer? And you can help me out by telling them the truth either way. Because if I'm just a great interviewer, it's only fair that that company knows that as well. The truth is always what matters.
Well, thank you, Denise. Today you've shown us that it's not just telling people, I'm looking for a job.
That's right. That's true.
Well, if someone wanted to contact you for some further advice or information, where could they reach you?
They can always reach me at LeaderFuelNow, and my email address is just simply denise.mills@leaderfuelnow.com. And that's the best way to reach me, and I'm happy to help anybody who needs some additional help or just wants to talk through how they can use their network to find that next position.
Great. Well, you can hear more from Denise on some of the other related subjects on our website, or you can hear other experts also speak to us on www.newlandingsjobchat.org, or search for Job Chat on YouTube. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Hector.
Until next time, may your days be full of health, happiness, and success.